definition, yung DM po natin, it is a metabolic disorder in which the body is unable to appropriately regulate the level of sugar, specifically the glucose in the blood, either by two possible causes. This could be associated to poor sensitivity to the protein or hormone insulin, or it could be caused by an inadequate production of insulin by the pancreas. Now, within changing lifestyle and increasing obesity, the prevalence of diabetes mellitus increases worldwide. In fact, according to WHO, in the year 2017, there has been 425 million recorded cases of diabetes mellitus worldwide. And according to IDF, or the International Diabetes Federation, approximately or about 10% of Americans had diabetes since 2015. And 63% here in the Philippines, 63% of the total population merong DM, according to the updated data presented last May 14, 2020. Now, with increasing in age, the prevalence of DM also increases. About 25% of the population greater than 65 years of age has diabetes. Now, let's fully understand as to how a person develops DM by knowing the etiology, pathophysiology, and the clinical presentation of the different types of diabetes. Now, DM is broadly classified into three types by etiology and clinical presentation. Actually, two major types nga. It's type 1 and type 2 DM. But I added another type, which is other variants, which includes your gestational DM and drug-induced DM. Okay, DM it primarily affects the islet of Langerhans, right? The islet of Langerhans of your pancreas, where the insulin and the glucagon are produced. Okay, so let's review muna the functions of these two hormones. Diba? These two partakes in controlling the blood glucose level produced by the islet of Langerhans at your or in your pancreas. Now, the insulin and glucagon, the question here is that how does this insulin and glucagon regulates or controls the blood glucose level? Remember this. Insulin, pag si insulin, it decreases, of course. I bet you know this one. It decreases rather. Decreases the blood glucose level. While the glucagon increases naman the blood glucose level. Now, your insulin is secreted by specific cells in the islets of Langerhans, and these are your beta cells. Okay? These are your beta cells. Now, as far as I can remember in your anatomy, beta cells are actually located at the center of the islet of Langerhans. While the other one, which is your alpha cells, that secretes the glucagon, yung alpha cells naman, it's located at the periphery of your islet of Langerhans. But just remember, if it's insulin, beta cells, glucagon, alpha cells. So remember BIGA, diba? BIGA, B, beta, I, insulin, G, glucagon, A, alpha cells. Okay. Now the question, Miss, paano ba ni insulin i-decrease yung glucose? Okay. Remember this, okay? So let's say you have your blood vessels here and you have your cells. So the insulin decreases the glucose in the blood by binding towards the cell membrane. Okay, towards the cell membrane. So let's say this is your blood vessel and you have your blood contains the insulin and you also have your, let's say this is your glucose. Now, eto, si insulin guys, remember, it will embed itself towards the insulin receptor of the cell membrane. So let's say you have the insulin receptor here. So si insulin, it will embed itself towards the insulin receptor, and then this particular cell will be activated. Okay. So, miss, unsa ni siya nga cell? So, there are two possible cells here. It could be muscle cell or it could be an adipose. Okay? Adipose tissue. Sige, let's go back, okay? So, insulin, it will embed itself towards the insulin receptor. This particular cell will then be activated. And upon activation, it moves the vesicle containing the glucose transporter. So let's say this is the glucose transporter. So si vesicle, it will move towards the cell membrane. Ayan, it will fuse itself towards the cell membrane ang imuhang glucose transporter. So ayan. So, nanay, transporter. Kasi si glucose, di man dyan siya kasud sa cell. It cannot enter the cell without the help of your insulin. Now, so since, or if that's the case, or if the glucose transporter has been fused sa cell membrane, so this glucose can now enter the cell, and of course, it will be utilized for energy. Para sa muscle cells, para sa adipose, dun sa adipose. Ayan. So, nakuha. So, with that, since the glucose can now enter the cell, so it decreases the blood glucose level. Okay. Now, how about the glucagon? Paano ba i-increase the glucagon yung glucose sa blood? Okay. So, it's just like the opposite, no? So, the glucagon will technically be delivered. It will get into the liver. Okay? So it will be delivered towards the liver. Ayan. And this generates new molecules and also breaks down the glycogen towards and produce glucose. So glucagon will enter the liver, it will be activated, and then si liver, it will break down si glycogen, and then ang byproduct niya is the glucose. Okay? Breaks down the glycogen to produce glucose. And then once the glucose is being produced, it will get dumped towards the blood. Okay, ayan. So, nag-increase yung blood glucose level. Simple as that. So, remember that one. Remember this mechanisms because it will help you understand the pathophysiology, okay, of diabetes. Okay, so as what I have introduced earlier, you have different types of DM. The major types are type 1 and type 2. You have other variants or subtypes, which is gestational DM and drug-induced. Now, type 1, it is an insulin-dependent DM, which accounts for 5 to 10% of all DM cases. And it is characterized by autoimmune destruction of insulin-producing beta cells. Okay? Again, it is characterized by autoimmune destruction of insulin-producing beta cells. Okay. While your type 2, it's the non-insulin dependent, which accounts for 90% of all DM cases. And this is highly caused by insulin resistance. Insulin resistance meaning there is good enough production of insulin, but the problem, the cells is resistant or does not utilize the glucose. Okay? Do not utilize glucose as a source of energy. How about your gestational DM and drug-induced? Gestational, from the word itself, it occurs during pregnancy at the second or third trimester. And drug-induced naman, pag it is a side effect or a medication side effect that tend to increase the blood glucose level. But let's focus on these two types. Okay? So I will further explain these two kasi yung gestational and drug-induced, technically, the mechanism as to how the patient develops DM, it is associated with type 2 naman. Okay? Associated with type 2 because Yung type 1, primarily, this is associated with genetic abnormality. Okay? So which means these two can be highly associated with type 2. Okay? So let's understand these two types. Okay? Type 1 DM, so the type 1, the body does not make enough insulin. Okay? That's the main problem of your type 1 DM. Okay? So which means, or this could be caused by type 4 hypersensitivity. Caused by type 4 hypersensitivity. So when you say type 4 hypersensitivity, this is cell-mediated immune response, right? Diba? Remember, cell-mediated immune response, basta type 4, where the T cells attack specifically the pancreas. Okay? In diabetes mellitus, the T cells attacks the pancreas. Actually, yung T cells, it reacts to all sorts of antigen in the body. All sorts of antigen. Whether if it's normal or antigen from a foreign body. Okay, but then, it does not attack because they have self-tolerance. Okay? Self-tolerance. That's the term na kung saan yung T cells does not attack the antigens immediately kasi meron silang self-tolerance. And basically, this is the main problem with type 1 diabetes mellitus. These are the T cells loses self-tolerance. So pag nawala yung self-tolerance, it then targets the beta cells antigen. It targets the beta cells antigen. Actually, okay, pag if it loses self-tolerance, it doesn't only targets or attacks it immediately, but yung T cells will have or will be allowed to recruit other immune cells and coordinate an attack. So, pag nawala ito, so it will call other immune cells, hey, let's attack the beta cells because meron siyang antigen na gusto nilang i-attack. Okay? So, this leads to the beta cell destruction. It leads to beta cell destruction. So, pag na-destroy si beta cell, there will be no or less production of the insulin. So pag walang insulin, 'di ba, hindi makakapasok si glucose towards the cell. It will not be utilized by the body. So it will just increase. Okay, mag-increase yung glucose in the blood, which leads to uncontrolled diabetes. Okay, nakuha po. Mayroong uncontrolled diabetes. And if that's the case, it will become symptomatic or the patient becomes symptomatic and presents the four clinical features such as polyphagia, okay? Too much pagkain kasi nasa-starve si patient. Glycosuria, this is the presence of glucose in the blood. And polyuria, this is increased urination. Polydipsia, this is brought about by thirst kasi dehydrated si patient. So, palaging umiinom si patient. Okay, that's type 1 diabetes mellitus. Now, diba, as what I have mentioned earlier, this is highly associated with genetic abnormality. And if there is a genetic, since it's an autoimmune destruction, right? It is an autoimmune problem. So most likely, there is an affectation of your, or there is a genetic abnormality in your HLA, which is human leukocyte antigen. Okay, so I believe no as far as I can remember, your HLA, it is encoded in your chromosome 6. Okay? Encoded in the chromosome 6, which is basically um used to encode your MHC. Okay? To encode MHC, which is major histocompatibility complex. Okay, so take note of this one kasi it is a common ground for all of the autoimmune diseases. Ito talaga Ang main problem basta autoimmune, it's the HLA that specifically the major histocompatibility complex. Bakit, miss? Because during or if there is an abnormality, the major histocompatibility complex, it loses its function. Kasi it is important in helping the immune system recognize foreign molecules and maintains self-tolerance. Okay. Siya yung pinaka-importante with the autoimmune disease. Okay? If there is an abnormality with this one, again, these T cells and other immune cells, they are not able to recognize foreign molecules and maintain self-tolerance. And let's go back, di ba? In your DM, there is loss of self-tolerance kasi merong abnormality dito. So specifically, it's your HLA-DR4 and HLA-DR3. Okay? Ayan. So, actually, not everyone develops diabetes if merong positive HLA-DR3 or DR4. Um, but most of the cases, according to research, most of the cases with type 1 DM presents to have this genetic abnormality. Okay, so this could be a genetic clue. Okay, pero I think could also happen if you have positive HLA-DR4. This could also lead to development of other autoimmune disease. In fact, this is also associated with rheumatoid arthritis, I believe. Okay. Anyways, now let's continue. So in type 1 diabetes, ganyan yung nangyari, right? So there will be increased glucose in the blood. So, but then the problem here is that nag-increase yung glucose pero si cell they are not able to utilize the glucose because decrease yung insulin. Okay? Decrease si insulin. So the cells definitely will starve for energy. Kailangan I need something to utilize for energy. So that is the reason why yung muscle cells, okay, since walang glucose, they start the breakdown of proteins instead. Okay? Kasi walang glucose. So muscle cell starts breakdown of protein and yung adipose tissue naman starts breaking down the fat or starts the process of lipolysis. Okay? So nag-breakdown yung protein sa muscle cells, nag-breakdown yung fat, that means it leads to weight loss. And of course, okay? And of course, the patient will experience too much hunger or palaging nagugutom si patient kasi kulang yung source of energy. So that's why merong polyphagia or nagkaka-polyphagia si patient kasi there is hunger. Okay? Understood? Now, aside from those, the increase in the glucose and decrease in the insulin, etong si glucose, it will be filtered in the kidney, of course. It will be delivered towards the kidney, and since it's too much, it starts to spill in the urine. That's why meron tayong glycosuria or the presence of glucose in the urine. And aside from that, it also increases urination. Means, bakit nag-increase yung urination? Pag si glucose na-filter sa kidney. Take note, glucose is considered to be an osmotically active, okay, agent. Osmotically active yan. Kung osmotically active ka, the water tends to follow. Okay. So, since maraming glucose pumunta sa kidney, the water follows since they are osmotically active. So, nag-increase yung urination. Okay? Increased urination, and that is polyuria. Lumalabas kasali si water. That's why the person becomes dehydrated, and pag dehydrated ka, palagi kang dehydrated, palagi ka namang umiinom. Okay, so let me cancel this one kasi typo. This is a typo. This is basically polydipsia. Okay. Polydipsia. Okay? Polydipsia, which is because of thirst, palaging umiinom si patient. And that is these are the clinical or the four clinical features of diabetes. This can also be seen or observed in a patient with type 2. Okay, don't worry, I will explain it also. Okay? Ayan. Four clinical features. Again, polyphagia, glycosuria, polyuria, and polydipsia. Okay. But hindi pa nagtatapos dyan, guys. Because let's go back to the lipolysis. Okay. This contributes to the major complication of type 1 diabetes mellitus, and that is diabetic ketoacidosis. All right. Now, let's go back. Lipolysis, the fat is broken down into free fatty acids. Okay. So that's the process kasi. Kailangan ni fat ng energy. Okay? So ang mangyayari, it will be broken down. It leads to a byproduct of free fatty acids. And then, si liver po natin, it will turn these free fatty acids into ketone bodies as source of energy. Okay, as source of energy. Now, okay, these ketone bodies could be either these two. You have your beta hydroxybutyric acid or acetoacetic acid. But let's not focus on this one kasi this is not considered to be a keto acid. Okay, this ketone body is not keto acid because mas na-overpower yung hydroxyl group compared sa ketone group. Okay? Okay? Ayan. So, there is ma-overpower yung hydroxyl group compared to the ketone group. So, let's focus on the acetic acid na lang. Okay? So, etong acetoacetic acid, ayan, so this is a combination of a ketone plus the carboxyl nga group. And if that's the case, mataas yung levels niya, which leads to increased acidity of the blood. Kasi mataas yung levels niya. Okay? Ayan, and that's the reason na merong ketoacidosis. Okay. Now, ketoacidosis presents with two major effects in a person with diabetes. They could have or present with respiration or hyperkalemia. With respiration, guys, the patient, you will observe that your patient will present with deep labored breathing as the body tries to move the carbon dioxide out of the blood in an effort to decrease its acidity. Okay? Again, respiration, merong deep labored breathing as the body tries to move the carbon dioxide out of the blood in an effort to decrease the acidity of the blood. Yan. And how about hyperkalemia? Miss, bakit nagkaka-hyperkalemia yung patient na merong diabetic ketoacidosis? Okay, let's review. Slight review lang with physiology again. Diba, remember, cells have a transporter that exchanges hydrogen ions or protons or positive ions for potassium. So, if the blood is acidic, it is by definition loaded protons or the positive ions that get sent into the cell. Kung acidic siya, ang mangyayari, these hydrogen ions or these protons will go inside the cell. Okay, will go inside the cell. Oops. Yan. You have your hydrogen here. Okay. Since acidic, papasok again si hydrogen ions inside the cell. Okay. Now, ang reaction of the cell, since the hydrogen enters the cell, the potassium gets sent into the fluid outside the cell. So, ipapalabas niya si potassium. Lalabas ka ha. Ayan. Lumabas si potassium at or sa ECF or the fluid outside the cell or extracellular fluid. Ayan. Now, in addition, no, remember, in normal events, the insulin, okay, in addition to helping the glucose into the cell, it stimulates the NAK pump or the sodium potassium pump. So, ang insulin, aside from binding towards the insulin receptor, it also stimulates the NA or the sodium potassium pump para mas pumasok si glucose towards the cell. Okay? This Na and or the sodium and potassium pump helps the potassium get inside the cell. Okay? So since acidic to, pinalabas si potassium, okay ra unta nga na ang insulin, ayan, kung na ang insulin, masudra balik unta si potassium because of the NAK pump, right? But then again, remember that in diabetes, there is no insulin or decrease yung insulin. So, there will be no one who will stimulate the sodium and potassium pump. Therefore, it cannot aid in letting the potassium go inside the cell or go inside the cell. Ayan. So, hindi na siya makakapasok ulit. So, that if that happens, so it accumulates to the ECF and then it will get itself towards the blood or makes it into the blood. So there is hyperkalemia or increased potassium levels in the blood. Ayan. So those are the two major effects of diabetic ketoacidosis. Naiintindihan po? Okay, all right. Now, let's go back to this one. Aside from these manifestations of diabetic ketoacidosis, the most common talaga or nga indicator nga merong ganitong condition is the ketone breath or in other sources sa acetone breath or the sweet fruity smell. Kasi ayan, these free ketone bodies, 'di ba? They will be utilized unta for energy. And then upon utilizing or converting it into energy, it leads to a byproduct or nabe-break down siya into acetone. So acetone is the byproduct. Ayan. And once there is too much acetone, so it leads to acetone breath or ketone breath, which basically describe as sweet fruity smell. Okay, so that's your type 1 diabetes mellitus. So all in all, I actually merged the etiology, pathophysio, and clinical presentation for you to understand the diabetes mellitus. Okay, so don't worry. You have another set for the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Now, this particular variant of DM, there is normal production of insulin, so it produces normal amount of insulin, but the main problem is the cells do not move their glucose transporter, meaning it will not move the glucose transporter, so the insulin cannot enter, or the glucose cannot enter the cell and will no longer be utilized as a source of energy. So that is your insulin resistance. That's insulin resistance. So what happens here is that um this is basically, or the body does not respond to normal levels of insulin. Ayan, which leads to more production of insulin kasi nga there is insulin resistance. Okay, now before we proceed to this one, let me discuss this first. Okay, insulin resistance are associated with a lot of risk factors. And yung primary is obesity. Then you also have an active lifestyle, high diet in carbohydrates, smoking, and a family history of diabetes. So these are the risk factors. And please take note of this one. You can include it in your etiology. Now let's go back. Okay. 'Di ba hindi nagre-respond to normal levels of insulin. So yung katawan natin, it produces more insulin but hindi na-utilize. Okay, yung glucose. So, paano ba nag-increase yung insulin? Okay. Now, this is actually as a response, okay? This is actually a response to the abnormal levels of insulin. So since si glucose, okay, since si glucose hindi siya na-utilize ng cell, okay, so ang mangyayari is magproproduce siya ng more insulin. Okay? It produces more insulin so that, okay, in order to get the same effects and move the glucose out of the blood. Okay? Again, the body ends up producing more insulin in order to get the same effects and move the glucose out of the blood. But how does the body produces more insulin? So they do this through beta cell hyperplasia, or nag-increase yung number of beta cells, and hypertrophy wherein the beta cells increases its size. Okay. So all of this in attempt to pump more insulin out. Okay? So technically it works for a while, and by keeping insulin levels higher than the normal, the blood glucose level were being kept in normal. So that's why at this point normoglycemic state pa. Okay? Wala pang manifestations ng DM. Okay. Now, but then ang mangyayari is, along with insulin, the beta cells also secretes islet amyloid polypeptide, or in short terminology, that's amylin. Okay. So aside nga mag-produce, kasi nag-hyperplastic na siya, hypertrophied siya. So nag-produce siya more of insulin. But aside from the insulin, it also produces amylin. Okay. So merong increase in amylin din. And ang mangyayari is that if there is too much amylin and too much insulin, over time, it builds up and aggregates into the cells, or into the islets rather. Again, over time, it builds up and aggregates into the islets. So etong si beta cell, it becomes exhausted. Okay? Once it becomes exhausted, nagiging dysfunctional na siya, and later on, it undergoes hypoplasia and hypotrophy. So, ayan. So, nasira na si beta cell kasi kinompensate niya eh. Nag-produce siya more and more insulin so that i-push pa niya ang glucose inside the cell. Okay? Which, technically, okay unta at first. But then, the beta cells becomes exhausted. So, it fails to function well. Balik ulit tayo. So, nag-increase ng ulit yung glucose sa blood po natin. And at this point, it is the hyperglycemic state na, wherein the patient now manifests with the 4 clinical features that I presented earlier. Okay? And specifically, this is termed as hypersmolar hyperglycemic state. Okay? Ayan. Now, so let's continue. So ano po yung hypersmolar hyperglycemic state? It is increased plasma osmolarity secondary to extreme dehydration and concentration of fluid. So take note, you have your glucose there, and if it's too high in the blood, it enters the hypoosmolar state. Okay. So, ang mangyayari guys, if it's in the hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state, the water starts to enter the body's cells and enter the blood vessels. Okay? Water starts to leave the body's cells and enters the blood vessel. Okay? Kasi ano siya? If it's in a hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state, ang mangyayari kasi knowing that glucose is a polar molecule, So, pag polar molecule siya, miss, di ba, it acts as a solute. So, if it's a solute, it cannot definitely diffuse across the cell membrane, right? So, pag super high level na sa blood, so yung H2O, lalabas siya sa cell and enters the blood vessels, which leaves the cells relatively dry and shriveled rather than being plump or juicy. Okay? So, just like this. Parang ganito. So, it ends up like this. It becomes dry and shriveled. Okay? So, now, what happens? Mas marami na yung water sa blood vessels. So, blood vessels is full of H2O or water. Then, it leads to increased urination and total body dehydration. Okay? So, this becomes a serious situation kasi sometimes it leads to affectations na of the brain where the patient presents with mental state changes. But the normal signs or the usual signs seen in hypersmolar hyperglycemic state, it the patient may have mild ketonemia and acidosis similar with diabetic acidosis, but not to the extent seen in DKA. Okay? Ayan. So this is the major complication in type 2 DM. Ayan. Kung type 1 naman, DKA. Okay? Mas common yung DKA sa type 1 DM. Okay. Alright. Now, so let's move on to the clinical manifestations. I hope you understood the pathophysiology and the presentation of your type 1 and type 2 DM. Okay? Ayan. So this one is a summary lang which na-discuss ko kanina. So the forming clinical features. Actually, there's a triad here of DM which includes polyphagia, polyuria, and polydipsia. But kasali na rin si glycosuria because it's one of the clinical or main clinical features. Others, patient may present with lack of energy or fatigue and weight loss. Now, complications. You have diabetic ketoacidosis wherein the patient may present cosmal respiration, hyperkalemia, and acetone breath. You also have other complications. Okay? So you have here hyaline arteriosclerosis. Okay? Hyaline arteriosclerosis, it is when, okay, because of DM, so let's say this is an arteriole, this is the walls, arterial walls. Ang mangyayari is there will be presence of hyaline deposits um in the inner wall of your blood vessel. So pag nag-deposit si hyaline, so this particular arteriole becomes hardened and inflexible. So it becomes hard and inflexible. So that's why you have hyaline arteriosclerosis. Now, some patients with DM also presents with hypoxia. Bakit? Okay, so in your capillaries kasi, this is all because of the glucose or increased levels of glucose. Now, um, the capillaries or its basement membrane sa capillaries po natin, it thickens. Okay? It thickens because nag-accumulate yung glucose. Ayan. Okay? It becomes damaged. So, it becomes harder. Okay? It hardens, rather. It hardens or thickens, which it becomes harder for the oxygen to get into your tissues. Okay? Harder for the oxygen to get into the tissues. That's why merong hypoxia. Then you also have atherosclerosis, okay, which is basically it increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. Kasi, ayan, actually this one or this complication, yung atherosclerosis in diabetes mellitus, this is actually considered to be one of the major contributors for the morbidity and mortality of in DM. Okay. You also have your eyes or complications sa eyes. You have diabetic retinopathy, which later on becomes or leads to blindness. Also cataract. Ayan. kasi nag-accumulate yung glucose sa sa eyes po. Then you have nerves, wherein the patient may present with decreased sensation in the toes and fingers, which commonly known as the stocking glove or glove stock distribution. So iba-iba yung terminologies na ginagamit, and I know you're familiar with that one. Then you have ANS malfunction, which basically some patients presents with profuse sweating and flatulence or passing gas. And of course, rather, most of the cases, patients present with diabetic ulcers or neuropathic ulcers because there is poor blood supply and nerve damage. So this leads to This leads to ulcerations. They do not heal quickly, and once it becomes severe, it becomes gangrenous. Ayan, the patient, or definitely that particular area, must be amputated. Okay. Ayan. Now, diagnosing. So, how does physicians diagnose a patient with diabetes? Now, the pinaka-common, of course, diagnostic tool is the fasting glucose, wherein the patient will be asked to not drink um, or eat for 8 hours prior to the tests. And results would show nga if yung patient would have 100 to 125 mg per milliliter, that indicates that there is pre-DM. But if it's greater or equal than that, that means the patient now definitely has an absolute diabetes mellitus. Now, you can also, our physicians can also opt for non-fasting or random glucose test, which can be administered anytime. So, indicator for DM with this one, it's greater than or equal 200 mg per milliliter. Okay, consider or take note of the difference. Basta fasting, it's 126. Basta non-fasting or random, it's 200. Now, oral glucose tolerance. So this one is basically the patient is given glucose and measured at a certain intervals, usually after 2 hours. Ayan. And they will measure the glucose level, and if it's 140 to 199 mg per milliliter, that indicates pre-DM. If it's greater than or equal, that's DM. Greater than or equal 200. Then you also have hemoglobin A1C tests for glucose, or sorry, for diabetes mellitus. So, kasi remember or take note that glucose can also stick in the blood, right? Can also stick in the blood cells. So this or HbA1c or hemoglobin A1c, it's a test for a portion of hemoglobin with glucose stick to it. In that particular area, it's called as glycated hemoglobin. So, ika-count niya kung anong portion ng hemoglobin na merong glucose or dumikit yung glucose. So, if it's 5 to 5.7 to 6.4%, that indicates pre-DM, or if it's greater than or equal 6.5, that's DM. And lastly, you have C-peptide, which is a test if merong byproduct of insulin production. Okay, this is to test the byproduct